Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh, also known as Archer, is the servant of Tokiomi Tosaka's Archer class in the Fourth Holy Grail War of Fate/Zero. He later forms a new contract with Kirai Kotomine that lasts 10 years later for the Fifth Holy Grail War in Fate/Stay Night. His true name is Gilgamesh, the great half-god, half-human king born of the union between the king of Uruk, Lugalbanda and goddess Rimit-Ninsun. He ruled the Sumerian city-state of Uruk, the capital city of ancient Mesopotamia. He was an ultimate, transcendent being as divine as to be two-thirds god and one-third human, and no other in the world could match him. He was a despot possessing high deity who believed he was invincible. He is not just a legend, and is said to have actually existed and ruled during the Sumer dynasty 5,000 years ago. He was the king of heroes who possessed all things in the world, whose tale is recorded in mankind's oldest epic poem, the Epic of Gilgamesh, which portrays Gilgamesh as a hero, destined to be king and achieve great exploits, who is led to meeting his destiny, facing challenges together with his best friend Enkidu. Personality: Gilgamesh differs greatly from most rulers and leaders in human history. He stood before his nation and people, and he had neither the curiosity nor the desire to conquer, possibly because he had so much to begin with. He takes the time to enjoy himself, mastering every treasure and every pleasure. With the conviction to treat good and evil alike, he does not need other ideologies and ways of life when the absolute basis is himself. His actions and way of life left him alone, so Enkidu likened rectifying his attitude to rectifying his loneliness. Intelligence: extremely high. Raised to be the pinnacle of all humans, Gilgamesh is an exceptionally intelligent individual when he wants to be, easily seeing through lies and discerning any number of magecraft forms with one glance, predicting the number of weapons Shiro would design, instantly seeing through Castor's fake death, and moving away from Saber after she formed a contract with Rin. Additionally, his Sha Nagba Imuru Phantasm Noble allows him to see all possible outcomes, allowing him to always make the correct move and discern his opponent's true names and noble phantasms if he so desires. However, this intelligence is held back by his incredible arrogance, as he refuses to go all out against most opponents due to believing himself far above them, actively restricting the use of Sha Nagba Imuru, and only releasing more than a few noble phantasms at a time when he is feeling playful or irritated. Also, due to his position as a king rather than a warrior, he has only overpowered a handful of the noble phantasms stored in his treasure, preventing him from unleashing their effects most of the time. Appearance: Gilgamesh is a dignified man with golden hair standing up like a blazing flame. His face is described as handsome, and his eyes, crimson like blood, are visibly not those of a human and give off a mysterious radiance that makes people wither. He has a perfect, golden proportioned body, described as emanating majesty that makes flames surrounding him afraid to come close, and his very soul glows golden. He normally wears golden armor and makes a heavy first impression on those he encounters. While fighting at full power in Fate/Hollow Ataraxia, he gains a number of red tattoos on his body that are not normally present. He is often referred to as the Golden Archer and the Golden Sparkling Servant, and Ryder generally calls him Goldie. He is similarly called Gold Glitter, Kinpika, due to his hair, armor, and golden soul, but Rin Tosaka's reasoning behind the name has less to do with the color of his hair and more simply due to the fact that she thinks he looks like he is living a rich and luxurious life. He looks like a regular foreigner to both Rin and Archer, and he does not openly give off the impression of a servant or master due to his body being made of flesh after the Fourth Holy Grail War. He likes to wear casual clothes, playing attire, to ward off boredom from being in spirit form, when not in battle, later becoming knowledgeable on the latest fashion trends after living in modern society for 10 years. He has collected a number of casual outfits. Fate/Zero, the clothing he wears in during the Fourth Holy Grail War is a fashionable white V-neck with three-quarter sleeves, and python print pants. Fate Root, during Fate, he wears a white jacket with a fur collar, a black shirt, and black pants. Biker Outfit, the biker outfit worn at the beginning of the game and in the Unlimited Blade Works route and Heaven's Feel route is his favorite outfit, liking it enough to ignore Shiro's group when presented with the possibility of the ashes from the burning Einsburn castle dirtying it. It can be said Shiro's life is worth less to him than his coat. He dons this clothing in the first Fate/Stay Night manga adaptation of both the Fate route and Unlimited Blade Works route. Fate/Hollow Ataraxia, upon returning to his adult form in Hollow Ataraxia, he boasts what he calls his official outfit, an extremely rare article, reserved for the select few. Shiro's first thought upon seeing it is to call him the Golden Pervert, and although Gilgamesh finds nothing wrong with it, Shiro concurs in that there can be nothing wrong with the minor details because the entire outfit itself is wrong from the start. Breaking the fourth wall, Gilgamesh describes it as something that was truly embarrassing, thus forbidden and removed from Fate/Stay Night until being used in Hollow Ataraxia. As it is a unique item, he says it has the downside of only allowing one pose. Child form. After drinking his potion of youth, he takes the form of a young child that is referred to as Child Gil. He has the same blood-red eyes and golden hair that makes him stand out from others. Shiro is unable to identify him from sight, and he finds it hard to believe they are the same person even after being told. In Fate/Grand Order, Gilgamesh's attire, much like that of other servants, changes with each ascension. In his first ascension, Gilgamesh presents himself with the golden armor he bears in both Fate/Stay Night and Fate/Zero, but without the red waist cape. In his second ascension, the outfit is complete with the red waist cape, making him one-for-one the same in terms of appearance for battle in Fate/Stay Night's Fate route and Fate Zero. In his third ascension, Gilgamesh's hair flows down as opposed to spiking upwards, and the upper half of his armor has been removed, with the exception for the right glove. Removing his armor exposes the red tattoos that he bears when at full power. In addition, he now wears a golden necklace. In this ascension, instead of being empty-handed, he holds the bar the exception of the chains of heaven being nowhere to be seen. This form is the same in appearance to the Genesis mythology mystic code present in Fate/Extra CCC. In the Babylonia Singularity, Gilgamesh in the Archer class appears with the attire of his third ascension but with his hair spiking up as it usually does in the other ascensions. Combat Token. Dimensionality, 3D at. Existential Status, Concrete Abstract. Attack Potency, Archipelago, as strong as Saber, fought her and Shiro at the same time, Major, with the Gates of Babylon, her highest ranked treasures can easily kill Berserker and repel his axe sword. Broken caster barriers like Glass, Planet, using EA, Infinite, defeated Kiera Sessioin, and is way above BB. Defense, Archipelago Planet Infinite. Speed, Hypersonic, fighted opponents who use lightning as an offensive power, Hypersonic, higher than before, faster than light, should be comparable to the other servants in their mythical formal robes, who traveled 1,500 light-years in a short period of time. Strength, Superhuman. Stamina, high. Range, several kilometers with Gate of Babylon. Planetary and unlimited with EA, the weapon attacks the world itself, so it is able to affect the entire dimension with the Enuma Elish. Physical weaknesses, he barely knows how to wield most weapons at Babylon's gate. As noted below, his arrogance makes him unlikely to use Enuma Elish to its fullest power, unless he finds a worthy opponent such as his only friend Enkidu. Psychological weaknesses, Gilgamesh is unbearably arrogant and thus, almost always holds back when he sees his opponent being so amusing. Variations, Base Form EA Divine Spirit. Powers and Abilities. Gilgamesh is the strongest heroic spirit and thus the most powerful existence among the servants in both the 4th and 5th Holy Grail War. While the energy of his soul is worth that of hundreds of thousands of souls, and taking him in is enough to fill a partially full Lesser Grail even while it lacks several other servants, Gilgamesh is only as physically strong as Saber or Heracles, if not weaker. The reason Gilgamesh has the advantage over most other servants in combat is that he is capable of exploiting their weaknesses thanks to possessing the originals of all noble phantasms. All heroic spirits have things they were weak against in life, their greatest weak points, and he possesses all of the noble phantasms ever owned by mankind, including those that killed each hero. As a result, he could be called the servant killer. Gilgamesh does not display power as an individual soldier, but rather as a war that even the strongest soldier could not overcome by himself. Only those who are a war themselves will be able to compete against him. In terms of the firepower available to him due to the versatility of his weaponry, he can be said to have the strength of 5 servants plus a force able to match all the servants and masters defending the town in Fate/Hollow Ataraxia, putting him at an advantage against those like Arcuade Brunestad whose strength is based on the single-entity ability of the opponent rather than their weaponry. Although Gilgamesh possesses overwhelming, cheat-like strength, other servants such as Enkidu, whose combat strength is roughly the same as that of Gilgamesh do in fact exist. Class Skills. Magic Resistance, E.C., rank. He did not have any abilities to resist magecraft during life, so he only gains magic resistance as the class ability of the Archer class. He obtains C rank under Tokiomi, allowing him to completely nullify Magecraft under 2 verses, but he is still susceptible to greater Magecraft and greater rituals. It is lowered under Kyrie due to his lack of magical energy, and remains at only the minimal level, rank E, that provides light damage mitigation against Magecraft rather than full neutralization. The state of his magic resistance matters little, as he is able to neutralize most Magecraft with his many items that defend against it. His armor and a shield are able to repel a rank Magecraft with ease. Overall, he is much more likely to simply unleash a raging wave of noble phantasms against mongrels, impeding the king by attempting to use large-scale spells, completely crushing them without even giving them the time to cast. Independent action. A rank Gilgamesh has a high rank of independent action, rank A, allowing him to easily utilize his noble phantasms and remain in the world without Tokiomi's backup. He is able to easily ignore his master's orders, making it possible to stroll around without making his master aware of his whereabouts. The only way to command him is through the use of command spells, but his disposition that does not even contain an ounce of respect for his master makes utilizing them idly a bad move. Utilizing noble phantasms of great power does require backup from his master. Independent action, A+ rank. After being materialized, he gains the rank of A+, completely setting him apart from the rest of the servants by allowing him to operate without a master. Exceeding his previous rank, the support of the master is unnecessary even while unleashing a large amount of magical power. It is an ability that bends the rules, and it allows for his continued materialization as a servant even after the conclusion of the Holy Grail War for 10 years. While he was always able to operate without regard for his master, gaining a physical body is what allowed for him to remain materialized after the Holy Grail War. While he accepts energy supplied by Kyrie from a number of orphans, he claims that the act was unnecessary overall. Personal skills. Divinity, B, A+. Rank. He would normally possess the highest rank of divinity among all heroic spirits due to being 2 out of 3 god. He is at a level even exceeding Heracles, the son of Zeus who ascended to the pantheon after death. The rank is instead decreased from A+ to B because of his hatred of the gods, who killed his only companion, Enkidu, unleashed the bull of heaven onto the earth, and caused him much trouble in his life. Golden Rule. A rank. He has the skill Golden Rule, being fated to a life that is filled with riches. It does not measure the percentage of gold in one's body, but the chance of attracting gold in one's life. The level of gold provided by rank A will make the user incredibly wealthy to the point where money trouble will be unknown, allowing him to live the life of a nabob WP. While it seems unrelated to battle, it plays a great role in arming him. Claiming all the world's treasures as his own, he obtained the originals of noble phantasms preserved in his treasury during that period. Charisma. A+ rank. He has the highest rank of charisma with the influence to build a grand empire on a global scale. He is often praised as the greatest king, so his ability to command and lead great armies is excellent. Being such a rare talent, with even AB rank being sufficient enough to lead a nation, his A+ rank makes it no longer a matter of popularity or skill, but closer to something like sorcery or curse. His ego and self-confidence can surely boost the morale of any army led by him to an extremely high level, allowing them to gain a tremendous increase in abilities. Collector. X rank is the talent to collect high-quality goods, luck that draws rare items into the possession of the servant. However, because it is the servant that owns this skill, the servant's master derives no benefit from this personal skill. Gilgamesh is a collector of treasures. Gathering all the treasures of the earth is his habit, but it is not a metaphor either. Within his era, he aggregated, paid and sealed unto his collection all the fruits of civilization. Rather than possession of individual items, it would be more appropriate to say that the true treasure he grasped was the very essence of human ingenuity. All that falls beyond the treasury of the king are those creations that came of new concepts, crafted by post-humans and items derived of the civilizations of other celestial bodies. Noble phantasms. Gate of Babylon, King's Treasure. It is the golden key that connects to the golden capital, from the treasure of the king of Gilgamesh, in which it connects the space of reality to the vault, opening an invisible door that allows the contents to pass over. User command. Allowing easy access to treasure items, he is able to pick up and use them as he sees fit. Phantasma knows rank changes due to its ranks reflecting the contents of the treasury. He can summon items directly into his hand, pull weapons directly behind him, or prepare numerous weapons in the air, charged like bullets. Gilgamesh can send as little as 1 or 2 weapons or enough at once that he becomes comparable to a torrent of gushing water directed at the opponent. He will increase the amount depending on the situation, opening the gate wider to reflect his anger or when forced to become more serious. He can prepare and cast tens, hundreds, and even thousands if he is willing. After burning them, he can allow them to pierce the ground after hitting the target, causing a large amount of destruction with each weapon that is comparable to something being blown up by an explosive blast. Any weapons or artifacts discharged by Gate of Babylon return to the vault after an unspecified period of time. Because he has no proficiency with any of these weapons, Gilgamesh would normally only fire the weapons as projectiles. In several cases, Gilgamesh has removed and normally wielded weapons per God's word. Any weapons any heroic spirit has is retroactively added to his vault, even though he shouldn't have them. Bulwo. It is the magic sword of Fergus Mac Roich. Also, given the spiral designations of the Rainbow Sword. It's a high-powered, long-range attack that makes even the destruction of landscapes possible. It is the prototype of many magic and holy swords from later ages, including Excalibur Gallatin, and thought to be the same sword as Caeldfulch of Welsh mythology, possibly becoming the prototype of Excalibur as well. Archer designs Caladbolg II, modified to improve its function as an arrow. Caladbolg, it is the magic sword of Fergus Mac Roich. Also, given the spiral designations of the Rainbow Sword. It's a high-powered, long-range attack that makes even the destruction of landscapes possible. It is the prototype of many magic and holy swords from later ages, including Excalibur Gallatin, and thought to be the same sword as Caeldfulch of Welsh mythology, possibly becoming the prototype of Excalibur as well. Archer designs Caladbolg II, modified to improve its function as an arrow. Showing its fearsome power by cutting through the tops of the 3 hills. Despite such usage, its true aspects when wielded as a phantasm noble are more accentuated for landscape destruction. His big attack that breaks the ground, he plunges him into the ground and causes a big eruption around the enemy. Command spell, also romanized as command seals, are 3 claims of absolute obedience, the crystallization of great magic. Unable to be normally controlled by humans, they are burdened by the absolute condition for materialization, the command spelling authority carved into them at the time of summoning. They are holy marks signifying a status of showing one's master, a system that was created by Zokan Makiri after the failure of the First Holy Grail War. Known only to the 3 founding families and overseers, its true purpose is to allow the Grail winner to force the servant to kill himself so that the ritual to reach the root with all 7 heroic spirits can be completed. Gilgamesh has an unknown number of those collected in the Moon Cell. They are the Master's salvation in the Moon Cell in the Holy Grail War. Dainsleif, it is a demonic sword from the Nibelungen. It is a sword that has been in 2 myths, with both versions showing its frightening nature. Within the Volsunga saga, it is a sword that was part of Fafnir in which it belonged to a treasure, taken by the clan that killed the Northern European hero, Sigurd. It is a cursed noble phantasm that contains a powerful, repair, curse to be used on its target, and also drives its possessor's fate to ruin and causes them to surely die. Within Skaldskaparmal, it is owned by the Danish king, Hogni. He was locked in eternal combat with the king of Sirkland, Hedin, due to the sword's curse, which forces it to always kill a man. Once drawn, it does not allow it to return to its scabbard until it is accomplished. While demonic and holy swords carry with them both glory and destruction, Dainsleif is said to bring only the latter in their master. Sword of Rupture, EA, it is the most powerful phantasm noble contained in the Gate of Babylon and the pinnacle of all those used by servers. Unlike all of his other unnamed weapons that were able to be passed down to other wielders over the course of history, it is a unique sword that only Gilgamesh possesses, a completely original existence that can only be possessed by him, which is only suitable for the use of a ruler and makes him transcendent. Ryder comments that the nature of the sword becomes more absurd as he sees its power. It can be used as a combat weapon much like a regular sword as shown in Fate/Unlimited Code, and even with its dull tip, it is capable of piercing directly into Ryder's chest and slowly grinding out his vitals. Enkidu, Chains of Heaven, it is Gilgamesh's most trusted phantasm noble, even more so than Ea, and the greatest secret kept in the Gate of Babylon. It is a chain named after his closest friend made to bind the gods so they cannot escape, making it one of the few anti-divine weapons that holds the concept of reigning over the gods. The chain's resistance and durability grows stronger with the goal of having greater divinity, but it is no more than a chain resistant to a target, with no deity such as saber, assassin, or archer. When used against a normal human like Shiro Amiya, he feels he has no chance of prying it out of him. Divine goals are fully realized on the spot, allowing him to turn on the Bull of Heaven that took 7 years of famine in Europe. He has some sort of limit, as he himself is able to tell that the chain is not. In Fate/Unlimited Codes, it is a cursed spear with a sinister design that was obtained from Scathach in the Land of Shadows by Ku Chulayan and one of the many weapons inside. From Gate of Babylon. Gibalg was carved from the remains of Kuruid's skull. Its name is derived from the term for serrated throwing weapon, Ga, evoking an image of lightning. Scathach had wished for him to kill her with the spear, but she had already ceased to be mortal by the time he received her. It's a glory given only to the most gifted of warriors, and it wasn't used once after he left the Shadowlands, until his fight with his great friend Ferdiad. He later used it again on his son Konla when he was backed into a corner during the fight. The spear is left behind, but a lament, that he has only taken the lives of his loved ones. He killed his only friend and his son who grew up in a faraway land, even though he was conceived to have killed a woman before them. Enough to fully power up the mad enhanced demigod Hercules. Gibalg, in Fate/Unlimited Codes, is a cursed spear with a sinister design that was obtained from Scathach in the Shadowlands by Ku Chulayan and one of the many weapons within Gate of Babylon. Gibalg was carved from the remains of Kuruid's skull. Its name is derived from the term for serrated throwing weapon, Ga, evoking an image of lightning. Scathach had wished for him to kill her with the spear, but she had already ceased to be mortal by the time he received her. It's a glory given only to the most gifted of warriors, and it wasn't used once after he left the Shadowlands, until his fight with his great friend Ferdiad. He later used it again on his son Konla when he was backed into a corner during the fight. The spear is left behind, but a lament, that he has only taken the lives of his loved ones. He killed his only friend and his son who grew up in a faraway land, even though he was conceived to have killed a woman before them. He normally wears golden armor, Kogen no Kachu, materialized from magical energy much like Saber's armor. It is extremely strong to the point that Shiro initially assumes that it is his main noble phantasm. It has a strong innate magic resistance, and it is durable enough to block Tsubaime Geishi and numerous strong blows from Saber simply by protecting his head with his hands. He eventually stops playing around despite his armor not being in any danger of giving out to her attacks. Shiro believes she would have been able to slash through it if she were to relaunch her barrage of attacks. He claims that he does not need it while playing around, and that it is only crucial for guarding against evil spirits like petrifying serpents WP, due to it being anti-petrification equipment, and gigantic bulls. One of his noble phantasms grants Gilgamesh the ability to levitate high into the air, to the point of being able to casually float over 100 meters above the opponent and remain perfectly still while having an all-out battle with Enkidu. He is capable of freely controlling it, allowing him to briefly descend to the ground before quickly returning to the air shortly after. Although he does not normally have an aptitude for magecraft, he has several mystic codes of great power that allows him to cast spells of considerable strength, such as his spellbook, a stone tablet capable of casting runes, and countless magic staves capable of using magic from the Age of the Gods, which vary to flaring magecraft-based fire attacks, launching magecraft-based homing light attacks, and surging magecraft-based lightning attacks. Enuma Elish. Gilgamesh's most powerful noble phantasm is Enuma Elish, an attack performed by unleashing EA's maximum output. Said output is equal or even greater than Excalibur's, and can be further increased by absorbing the energy of the other noble phantasms within Gate of Babylon. Thus, its power cannot be completely neutralized even when colliding with Excalibur, unless it is blocked by an anti-purge class armor or counterbalanced by an attack that deals damage of the same level. In his final fight against Saber in the Fate route, when Gilgamesh finally decided to go all out after seeing Saber's determination, Saber managed to momentarily offset full power Enuma Elish with Excalibur despite being so exhausted she couldn't lift her sword or walk due to her legs not being even at 1/10 of their original power. Once EA's turns reached their maximum speed, and its light started to mow down Excalibur, Saber activated Avalon, completely protecting herself from his attack. Once Gilgamesh realized what was happening, he saw death running up his spine as the raised EA cannot stop turning once it's being fired, and he wouldn't be able to jump back in time. In that instance, Saber ran towards him while charging Excalibur once more, firing it once she was right in front of him, defeating him in the process. Gilgamesh's role in the defeat of Tiamat in the Babylonia Singularity was key. After Merlin transformed the Sea of Life into flowers draining her power, and first Hassan not only severed her wings but granted her the concept of death by downgrading her Saint Graph into that of a normal servant. Archer Gilgamesh aided Ritsuka Fujimaru's party by dealing the finishing blow with Enuma Elish, destroying her weak spot in the head and collapsing her spirit origin in the process. Shah Nakba Imuru. Gilgamesh possesses a tremendously efficient clairvoyance, taking the form of the noble phantasm Shah Nakba Imuru, that allows him to discern heavily concealed truths with a single glance, making him fully capable of reading the true name and noble phantasms of his opponents, and he is able to guide others with the most optimal tactics upon releasing his true name, simultaneously increasing the attack and defense power of his entire team. He is extremely perceptive of magecraft, allowing him to see through casters' fake death and tell the exact number of spells a magus is preparing just by looking at them, as shown by how he effortlessly predicts the exact number of projections prepared by Shiro, which he went as far as to ask what kind of hero he would be if he could not see through a magus. He is also capable of accurately assessing his opponent's abilities. He would not even consider having a battle of swordsmanship with Assassin, and while he plays around with a weakened saber in Fate, he immediately backs off from her to avoid hand-to-hand combat during unlimited blade works after she receives a boost in power from her contract with Rin. Gram/Meridak. Gram was wielded by Sigurd in the Volsunga saga of Norse mythology. It was originally wielded, and pulled from the trunk of a mighty tree by Sigurd's father, Sigmund, later torn to shreds from the confrontation with Gungnir, was reforged again into a demonic blade that was capable of slaying even a dragon by Sigurd. After that, it became known as a demonic sword of both glory and ruin. It is said to be the strongest demon sword that can only be equaled by the strongest holy sword Excalibur, so it possesses the special trait of Dragon Slayer. The weapon is said to appear in Der Ring de Nibelungen, a legend of a knight equal to that of King Arthur in the guise of Balmung, but is instead called the origin of Balmung, wielded by Siegfried. The incident of Gram being drawn from the tree by Sigmund within the halls of King Volsungus is a legend of a sword of selection originating with the sword Meridak. Gram, the sword of supremacy in the tree of Northern Europe, itself was the model for Caliban, the sword in the stone, possessed by King Arthur. Harp, the snake hunter's side. It is a divine sword from Greek mythology used by Perseus to slay the Gorgon Medusa, and is one of the many weapons within the Gate of Babylon. It is described as a holy sword for killing monsters with a special sickle-like shape, having the cutting edge on the inside of the blade, although it is not effectively an excellent sword in its own right. His true strength is his refraction trait of longevity, which is a divine ability that nullifies the eternal attribute of immortals and inflicts wounds that cannot be restored by any means other than healing, according to the methods of natural laws. It is one of the 5 noble phantasms given to Perseus, the most legendary artifacts given to a single person in Greek history, for his quest to kill Medusa. It was given by Hermes, and once it was returned to him, once the task was completed, it can be called an anti-Medusa weapon. Houtenjiki. It is a species of halberd passed down in Chinese culture and the only type of halberd of many to attain the rank of phantasm noble, likely due to the use of Hautengajiki by a famous military commander. It is a polearm with many different uses, such as pushing, passing, pulling, parrying, and many others. Chinese halberds have a spearhead at the end of the shaft and a blade attached to the side, and the distinguishing feature of a Houtenjiki is a unique crescent-shaped side blade, the Moon Fang. Weapons with only one of these blades are called Tsuryujiki. It is said that a great deal of skill is required to handle this weapon, despite its versatility and ease of use. Once mastering it allowed it to be used to serve the proper role for any type of combatant. Its use eventually went out of favor as different dynasties rose and fell until it was revived during the Song dynasty as Houtenjiki. This weapon once belonged to Lu Bu, a servant of the Berserker class. Potion of Youth. The Potion of Youth is a noble phantasm that returns the user to their youth, stored in the Gate of Babylon. It is kept in a small, translucent bottle with a bright, well-ornate design made of an unknown material that resembles a crystal. It is the herb of immortality that Gilgamesh had sought after Enkidu's death. Seeking immortality to avoid his own inevitable death, he sought out the sage, Utnapishtim, in Kaigal, but learned that the sage's immortality was gained from becoming a god. Utnapishtim was transformed into a half-plant in this process. Rejecting him because he would remove his desires as a human, the sage once told him about the root of an herb that grew deep in Kaigal that was the true secret behind immortality without seeking the mercy of the gods. Gilgamesh found the herb and, for the first time in his life, felt joy and a sense of accomplishment. When he went to take a bath to return to Uruk in majesty, however, this herb was eaten by a hungry snake. Having recognized the herb as lost, Gilgamesh finally came to an epiphany that it is no longer necessary for him to seek immortality. Once what he realized was the essence of humanity lied in the discovery of joy and the subsequent loss of that joy. Since the potion worked to reverse the drinker of his youth, rather than as an elixir of immortality, the serpent and his descendants shed their skin in order to bring back their youth. As it was still a rare treasure that he had planned to obtain even before his desperate quest, he went back to the bottom to keep it as an exotic wonder to decorate his vault. Drinking returns him to the form of a child, drastically altering both his appearance and personality. It is used in cases where he would need it to tolerate and blend into the society around him, such as spending 10 years in the modern world after the Fourth Holy Grail War. He can also use it in a case where he sees something as childish play like the fake Holy Grail War. Vajra, it is a weapon that appears in Vedic mythology of ancient India. It was a weapon crafted by Tvastar, the maker of divine instruments, using the bones of the sage, Davichi. It became the symbol of the divinity of Indra, the god of lightning, and the indestructible diamond beater, Kangosho, weapon carried by the gods of Buddhism. It was held in an interpretation to be a manifestation of Indra's lightning, which is supported by its deceptions as a golden projectile and its unbefitting appearance of a conventional weapon. Vajra was initially known by its proper name of Jaya when Indra was first introduced to India as a phenomenon that spread from the Aryans. Along with Indra, whose name changed to Taishakuden, his divine symbol, he also had his name changed and became known as Vajra after the age of Buddhism as India's main religion began. Vimana, he bypasses the laws of physics, traveling at the speed of thought, and he can easily outrun a modern jet, while Gilgamesh just plays around. It has a pilot throne, which can be removed in emergency situations, and a control column, which is not used due to interference with the functioning of the Gate of Babylon. Anti-spirit incense, when facing Avenger Gilgamesh Kid spreads a silver ash around himself, forming a mist with a peculiar aroma, which draws corpses to it. Armor, an armor capable of even negating petrification, in addition to being able to block attacks from Saber, Arthuria. Self-Defender, a series of golden discs that floats in the air to intercept attacks that come within range, capable of being configured to protect an entire floor of a building. At 20 meters, it automatically sends out an innumerable series of small beams to knock the target down. It is possible for attacks such as the arrows fired by the true archer, Hercules before Insanity, to slip through defenses despite the lightning's great speed. A defensive weaponry that protects against the multidimensional refraction phenomenon, capable of stopping Tsubain Geishi as a result. Mirror, used to repel strong magecraft, magic, effortlessly. Holy Grail, equipment that can grant omnipotent wishes, and can only be used once per object. Axis, an axe with the ability to change its path after being evaded by the target, allowing it to turn midair towards the target at a speed that allows it to keep up with the pace of a jet. Golden Axe, one of the few melee weapons Gilgamesh uses in the Moon Cell, the Golden Axe is used to slash the opponent and hit them with a heavy overhead chop. When used with the Clear the Storm skill, it breaks space with a spinning chop. He also uses similar ones, Golden Axe, while in the caster class. Kitchen items and food. Fully automatic cooker, from ancient Sumer, it is an extremely high-performance machine capable of processing even dangerous ingredients such as Hydra meat without issue. It has a limiter, which can be removed to improve performance, but can potentially break it. Hydra meat, an extremely poisonous meat, it requires a special license to cook that only Gilgamesh obtains. Meat that multiplies in proportion to how much is eaten. The poison tasting is a phantasm noble. Spices and herbs are also contained in the vault. It is not an herb that can prepare the stomach for such a meal, but it causes permanent agusia upon consumption. Tablecloth, prototype of the North Wind tablecloth from European folklore, which will produce the best of food once it is spread out on a table. King's wine, as claimed by Gilgamesh, contained in a set of wine bottles made of heavy gold that are rimmed with glittering stones. Writer, Iskandar, believes it could not be brewed by the hand of man, asking if it is a drink of the gods, to which Gilgamesh boastfully states that, whether wine or swords, only the best is stored in my treasury. Night curtain, it is mentioned as something that could be used to fight Gawain. Erasing, I don't know if it's exactly that, or covering the sun. Gold drill, One of the few weapons Gilgamesh uses on the moon cell, the golden weapon is used to skewer the opponent and damage them with sword blades, as well as machine gun and cannon fire. Has a hammer larger than Saber's sword, Arthuria. Lens, he has a gold ring, able to show a distant landscape like a telescope. Gilgamesh uses it to see Hercules, before insanity, 20 kilometers away. Lightning, Gilgamesh launches formless lightning as a projectile. Levitation, Gilgamesh possesses a treasure that grants some form of levitation. Possessed by Gilgamesh at the gate of Babylon, in which he grants him a means of levitating in the air. Able to casually float over 100 meters above the opponent, he displays the ability to take on a battle with Enkidu while remaining in the same spot. He can control it freely, briefly descending to the ground and then returning to the air shortly after. During the unlimited blade works, Gilgamesh throws Shinji Matu high into the air and stops his descent within a split second before he hits the ground. It is unknown if this is the same noble phantom. Arrow Protection Amulet, it is an amulet modeled after solar eclipses. It increases the wearer's evasion rate and automatically nullifies all projectiles rated D and below. Gold splinters, then more attacks nullify, so the amulet will be more after enough time. It has a property where it can be sacrificed and thrown at an enemy to emit the light and heat of a small sun, the magnitude of its potency being proportional to the amulet's remaining dimension. Hades' Invisibility Cloak, it is the prototype of all phantasm nobles that hides the figure. Usually kept by Gilgamesh in the form of a sash, all covered or wrapped in cloth that cannot be observed through optical means and magecraft. Using optic magic to block all forms of magic detection and any presence of magical emanations from the wearer, it is extremely effective against those who rely solely on magecraft to detect enemies. Hot Spring, it is one of the phantasm nobles of Gilgamesh in Fate Khalid Liner Prisma Ilia. He shows the ability to freely lay down on the roof of his school base, also modifying it to fit Japanese customs. Igialima, it is a gigantic sword classified as a divine build. When launched from the gate of Babylon, it can be used as a large projectile, and can land on top of opponents horizontally to crush them with its massive size. It can be made against a structure and use it as a wall, and multiple people can engage in battle across its width without difficulty. Though it cannot normally be wielded, Gilgamesh in corrupted form is able to wield it along with the god's protector, allowing him to easily cut through a forest with a single swing until partially cleaved by the Ilia's Vi form. It still proves to be a potent weapon even afterwards, and continues to be damaged even after returning to the class board's treasury and when being used by Angelica. Sulsagana, it is a large, irregular, divine construction contained within the gate of Babylon. Like the Igialima, it is named after a deity in Sumerian mythology. He can launch a beam-type attack. Protector of the gods, it is a massive, ornate dome shield used to block the extremely powerful magic attacks of Kuro and Excalibur without a scratch. He is destroyed by Ilia in her Vi form. 9 Lives, it is the prototype version of Gilgamesh's 9 lives in his gate of Babylon in the Fate Khalid Liner Prism Ilia. It's a massive ballistic weapon that uses an automatically guided laser.
If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.